Hello, and welcome to Religion and Life. I'm your host, Ozzie Ostwalt. My guest today is our very own Kelly Hunter, the producer of Religion and Life. She's here to talk about the challenges of creating a program on religion and religious topics, and maybe give us an instructive behind-the-scenes introduction of the production process and introduce us to the important people who make this program work. Kelly, I really appreciate you being on this side of the camera for a change.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. It is very different being here. I'm used to being behind in the studio room, like the control room right now, so it's a nice change.
Yeah, I like to watch you back in the control booth do your thing. I want to get an inside view of that someday. But I wanted to get your perspective on this program. You've been with App TV for some time, but this is actually your first season producing Religion and Life. And I just wonder what you thought when you were assigned this program, what you envisioned, what challenges you face, and so forth.
Oh, goodness. Well, challenges would definitely have to be finding a topic and finding guests who won't alienate other people's religious beliefs or views. I definitely want everything to feel all-inclusive and to get that nice community feel that Boone provides to everybody. So that's kind of been a challenge, but you've been a great help finding awesome guests and people who include all types of things like the Casting Bread Ministries to help the homeless and stuff. So that's been awesome. When I first started out producing this show, I wasn't quite sure which direction it was going to take. I was kind of, for the first episode, just going to sit back and see and then let that steer the direction. But so far, I've been really happy with how it's turned out. I would like to do some more stuff out of the studio maybe, perhaps, just to give our audience and our viewers a different kind of feel for the show. But so far, it's been so good. I've been very happy with it. And for my last semester here at App, I'm very glad to say that I produced this season of Religion and Life.
Well, that's great. We're going to brainstorm on how to get out of the studio before the season's over and get out and about. You mentioned the importance of producing a program that doesn't maybe favor one group over another or doesn't alienate certain religious groups in the community. Do you feel like we've been successful in doing that, maintaining a kind of neutral stance toward religion?
As a whole, I feel like yes, we have. There's definitely some religious groups or topics that I personally didn't even know about until working on this show. And for us to have them be featured on here was fantastic, such as like the Quakers and stuff like that. I've known that Quakers exist. I just personally didn't know much about them. So I feel like we've done a good job showcasing a little bit of every kind of religion. And I would love to see maybe a little bit more Jewish type synagogue views and stuff like that, but that's something to work on for next semester.
Well, one of the challenges here, and I'm gratified to know that you learned some things while producing the program, but one of the challenges in Boone is that we're not exactly homogenous, but we're not very diverse either when it comes to religious traditions. So that has been one challenge that we've faced, and it's been a while since we've done a program on the Jewish temple in town. So that's a way to get out of the studio here, is to visit that. But yeah, I think we've always tried to be sensitive to the type of religious diversity that does exist in the mountains, and we've done a pretty good job with that.
I agree. I've been very impressed with it. I have noticed that Boone definitely has a lot of Methodist religious here, like a lot of Methodist churches and stuff like that. But I think we've done a good job staying away from just like focusing on that one religion and incorporating the others.
And of course, a lot of Baptists.
Oh, a lot of Baptists.
Yeah. So in the South in general, and in the mountains in particular, we're going to be predominated by Baptists and Methodists and other evangelical traditions. And we've had representatives from those groups. And we've also had some interesting representatives from organizations like Samaritan's Purse, which is, we're fortunate, it's a worldwide international relief organization, and they're based here in Boone. So even with our lack of diversity, there are interesting guests and topics in the region.
There definitely are. And there's definitely a place for everybody who comes to App, I feel like, to try and find their home or their niche. A lot of different churches for them to try out, a lot of different on-campus organizations and groups that will help them find their home. So I think that's also really good.
So, the conventional wisdom is that you shouldn't talk about politics or religion in public. We've sort of thrown convention to the wind with this
A little
program.
bit.
So are you ever nervous when you're in the control booth that things are veering off into a more controversial stance that you would be comfortable with, or?
Personally, no, not. I don't think we've had anybody take it too extreme or too far one way yet, so I haven't worried about that yet. I think everybody's kind of took a neutral stance, or we've helped them steer their way back to a neutral position so that it wasn't too heavily one-sided. So no, I haven't been too worried yet. I think it's gone good so far.
Great.
No complaints there.
Do you have a favorite moment from your experience producing this show, or a favorite guest? Or
Oh goodness, I would definitely have to say Reverend Jesse Jackson was a favorite guest. I mean, it is the Reverend Jesse Jackson. He's done a lot in like the past human history. He's a huge civil rights leader, done a lot of stuff. I really hope when he came, he finally got to have his Cracker Barrel. I hope somebody finally took him.
Moment.
Yeah, definitely could tell he loves his Southern cooking, so hopefully he got some of that. But it was great to have somebody as prestigious and well-known as he is on the show, and to get to speak with him and get to meet him in person was a huge honor.
Yeah, and you and your crew did a fantastic job making arrangements for him, and he was a delightful guest. That had to be a high point for me as well. And you all did a great job making accommodations for such a high-profile guest who visited our university. So I appreciate that.
Out of everybody you've had on the show, who's been your favorite guest?
I probably would echo what you said about the Reverend Jesse Jackson. I think by far he's probably the most high-profile guest. But I don't know. It's so hard to pick a favorite. Reverend Will Willimon was on, and he's a person who is internationally known as a minister and cleric and writer. So he was a delightful guest, and another kind of high-profile guest. Dennis Covington was on. He's a well-known writer, and you weren't producing when he was our guest, but he wrote a book called Salvation on Sand Mountain. It's about snake handling, and he handled poisonous snakes in the process of researching the book. So that was a kind of fascinating tale.
That is. That's a cool story to be able to tell.
I know, yeah. Rob Lee was a guest a couple years ago. He was a direct descendant of Robert E. Lee, and he gained some notoriety because he was protesting the presence of Confederate monuments across the South.
Oh,
so
wow.
to think about a descendant of General Robert E. Lee taking a stand against Confederate monuments is interesting. And
that is very interesting.
So I don't know. The list goes on. We've had some fantastic guests, and we've had representatives from all of the major world religions at one time or another. We've had episodes on music and poetry and literature, and it's just I've learned. You said you learned so much. I've learned so much doing this program, and I've been studying religion my whole adult life. So it's been great from that perspective.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Now, you've actually been the host of Religion and Life for 8 seasons now, because this is our 8th season, so from the very beginning. So from where it started to where it is now, how has it progressed and changed? Is it anything like you thought it would be, or?
I think it's exceeded my expectations. I know when this idea was in its genesis stage, and we sat down for the first time and talked about the program, I thought, man, this is fantastic, but we're going to run out of ideas. I mean, we're in Boone, North Carolina. How are we going to find stories about religion in an area that's not very diverse? That was my first major concern. Well, that was 90 programs ago, right? And we're still going strong. I think what I envisioned was that this would primarily be a tool of education, okay? That it would be a resource for the college classroom, so that professors could show these programs as needed in the classroom. And now y'all do a great job of getting it on YouTube, so people can access it at will.
Power of social media.
There you go. I know.
Thing.
It is wonderful. But I also wanted it not to just be another classroom lecture. That I wanted the the programs to be relevant to a wider community. And I think we've done a good job with that, so that these programs are educational, not only at the university classroom level, but in the popular community, to more popular audiences. I believe that we've provided that resource for the community, and that's really what I think I'm most proud of. So to the extent that it has fulfilled my expectation as a vehicle for education, I'm really proud that I think we've done a good job with that. To the extent that we continue to find new guests and new topics and new programs to highlight. Now, my first fear was we wouldn't have enough. Now I just want to cover it all, and I can't get to everything. So that's been a nice surprise. And hopefully it's a little bit entertaining.
Most definitely.
We've done some things that I think were a little bit out of the box. And so, I think we've been provided the information in a way that's attention gathering and getting. So
most definitely. I think the episode that I found one of the most interesting, besides the Reverend Jesse Jackson one this season, has been the artificial intelligence one.
Oh, yes.
And your opinion in mind, how do you think artificial intelligence has helped to educate the youth of the young today?
Well, I'm so far behind the curve on all this. I don't know that I can speak intelligently about it, but my daughter's 20 years old, so she grew up with technology in a way that I could never have dreamed of it. So I think that social media, number one, I don't know if that's really technically artificial intelligence, but social media has become a tool that has allowed the dissemination of information at such a wider level than I could ever have imagined growing up. And we're using it here for this program. But as we veer off into new forms of technology that we call artificial intelligence, and we all carry it around with us in our pockets. The smartphones are examples of AI. It just opens up a whole new area and a whole new way of thinking about information in general. But as you gathered, and I gathered also from my guest, it raises ethical questions and religious questions. Will technology supersede the human spirit in some way? Is it going to take over some of the functions and characteristics that we used to think were unique to human beings? So it just challenges us to think in different ways about our reality and about our world. And I guess that's really one of the functions of this program in general, is not only to provide information, but to challenge people to think about their world from a different perspective, if only for 30 minutes.
Yeah, and to get a taste and see, a taste into somebody else's religious beliefs and mindsets and how they think and respond to situations and stuff. It's very interesting.
Yeah, there was a man who pioneered the study of religion from, I guess, a scientific perspective. His name was Max Mueller, and he was an advocate for the comparative approach to the study of religion. And he's quite famous for saying, the person who only knows one religion knows none. That's a paraphrase. So, but the point is that from his perspective, and really from the perspective of how we teach religion in the university at large, is that greater knowledge about the wide range of religiosity in the world not only helps us understand our world better, but it helps us understand our unique individual belief structures better. I can understand my faith perspective more fully if I can understand someone else's way of viewing the world. So I think also this program helps to do that too. It introduces the wider community to the wide range of religious faith around the world, even if we're focusing here in Boone.
That's very true. I agree with that. I think it's very good also to be well-rounded and educated on every little thing. You don't want to be single-minded.
Right.
So it is very good that we incorporate and talk about all this different stuff. And this season alone has showed me that there are so many different more religions in Boone that I drive around and see just driving past the Baptist and Methodist churches. There is a lot more going on than meets the eye.
Well, the Baptist and Methodist churches are always prominently placed on
Very
the
prominent.
Corner, right, the street corner. But
right on the side of the major highways.
Yeah, but you're right. There are some smaller communities. You mentioned the Jewish community in town, and now there's a beautiful building, the Jewish temple, right on the edge of town on campus. We had a representative from Baha'i recently. You mentioned the Quaker program. And these are all small communities. One guest I hope to have, you mentioned the future. One guest I hope to have is a representative from the Boone Mennonites in town. And this is the longest standing African American religious group in Boone. And it's a group of Mennonites. And that's a very unusual combination. There's only a few African American Mennonite churches in the entire country. And we have one here in Boone. And not many people know about that.
No, I just learned something new.
There you go. So there are plenty of new directions that we can go, and plenty of programs that we can pursue. So I guess you asked me earlier about the future direction. I see us continuing to build upon what we've done to explore some more of these traditions that are not as well known, perhaps. And essentially to explore the relationship of culture and religion. Yeah.
Do you see yourself being the host of the next couple of seasons to
gosh.
come, or are you going to pass down the reins and take over from behind the scenes?
I think I'd like to do it till you guys fire me. This is, I have no idea what I'm doing on camera. I was not trained to interview guests on TV, but this has been one of the most fun things I've done in my career. And because primarily I've learned so much. So when I have a guest on, usually I have a lot of preparation to do. Either they've written a book that I need to read, or someone like the Reverend Jackson, I need to study the biography because it's such an important person.
They've done so much.
Exactly. So even though as I mentioned, I've studied religion my entire adult life, every week I learn something new simply by prepping for the guest on the program. So I want to continue my education, so I enjoy that part. And just the process of talking to someone on camera. It's really gratifying. So yes, I would like to continue. I don't know, you guys might decide you want a new host, and I would
we love you.
I would certainly understand that, but this has been one of the more enjoyable things I've done through a 31-year career of teaching religion.
Well, don't worry, you seem like natural on camera now, so we have no idea.
Well,
have you always been fascinated in religion since you were a kid, or what specifically got you hooked on learning all about religion and all the different views and faiths and beliefs?
I grew up in the church, so I grew up with a religious background. But I think it wasn't until I was in college that I became hooked on studying religious faith across the spectrum. And I went to college thinking I was going to study chemistry and biology, and took a course on religion and was fascinated by it. And I took another one, and the first thing I knew, I had a Ph.D. in religious studies. So it was really a background of as a child in the church and a background in faith, but then in college, kind of intellectual curiosity that led me down this career path.
And when you got your Ph.D. in religion, did you ever think that one day you would be here at App, a professor teaching it to students?
No, I didn't know where I would end up. I taught at Lafayette College first, and then came to Appalachian in 1988, and certainly didn't see myself here 30 years later, sitting in front of a TV camera. But it's been a wonderful career. I can't imagine living anywhere else or being in a more desirable university with better students. This has just been a very gratifying place to spend a career. And I want to thank you for being such a good producer, and you've been a marvelous asset here on App TV and really made this program blossom, I think.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. We're still a work in progress, but we've come a long way. We're proud of it.
You've done a great job, and I appreciate you sitting down with me today just to talk about the program, where it's going, where it's been, and hope that we'll bring great things to the screen in the future.
Me too. That's the goal.
Well, thank you, Kelly, again for being with us, and thank you for joining us for another week of Religion and Life. I hope you'll join us next week as we explore those life events that occur at the intersection of religion, society, and culture. Until then, this is Ozzie Ostwalt.